make a start.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you.
All
Go
good.
ahead.
Do we have any apologies? No apologies?
No.
Righty-ho. Do we have any declarations of interest?
Yes, just myself for the grant application for the Mackenzie Amateur Swim Club, because I'm actually the treasurer of that. So
Okay, cool. Any other declarations of interest? Okay, we'll move on.
Sorry, I was on mute. I've just been asked to be the conduit between the Memorial Wall Committee and the Community Board, but I don't sit on the committee. I just wanted to make that clear since evidently Les did. So just
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries at all. If there's no other declarations of interest, then I'd like to call a minute's silence for the passing of Les, our chairperson. So we'll start that from there, thanks. Thank you. I'll now hand you over to Lane.
Thank you, Damon. I would like to call for nominations for the role of chairperson of the Fairlie Community Board. If there are any nominations, could you please let us know?
I'd like to nominate Damon Smith, please.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
yes, I'll second that.
And we'll take, are there any more nominations before we take a vote? No? Okay, well, we won't need a vote then. Damon has been elected chairperson to fill the vacancy left by Les Blacklock. This now means that we don't have a deputy chairperson, so I'd like to call for nominations for someone to take over the role of deputy, please.
I'd like to nominate Angela Halbrecken.
And do we have a seconder?
Second it.
Thank you. Any more nominations? Okay, congratulations, Angela. You've been elected deputy chair of the community board. So I'll now hand the meeting back to the new chairperson, Damon. Thank you.
Thanks, Arlene. Righty-ho. Moving forward. Do we have anybody from the public forum?
I'm not aware of anyone.
Okay, cool. Well, good. Oh, well, we'll move on to the reports then. So we've obviously filled the positions of the chairman and the deputy. Would the board like to discuss at this point a way that the board can recognise Lisa's contribution to the community and to this board?
Yep. Well, as we sort of briefly discussed at our meeting, the idea of some kind of scholarship for a apprentice trade, was that still an idea that we thought was okay?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and it'll be well received. Ange?
Yeah. I actually did speak to Wendy, just, float the idea past here, and she thought it was a lovely tribute and a wonderful idea. So she was really supportive of it. I did say, oh, you could maybe present the first one, but I don't think she was too keen on that. So, but yeah, she was really supportive of it. So if that's something that we want to do, then yeah.
Have you given any consideration to how much and where the money would come from?
I think we were thinking about $1,000, and we were hoping that we could maybe pull it out of the township project money, since it's not a huge amount of money to pull, and it would be an annual scholarship.
Okay, would you like me to look into that idea further and just see what it would involve? I believe if it was going to be administered by council, it would involve some staff time, so we may need to take it further and get permission higher up. So if you'd like to leave that idea with me, I'm happy to investigate further and come back to the next meeting.
Thanks, Arlene. Yep.
Yeah, it sounds good, Arlene. I think, yeah, it would be quite good to have a bit of a discussion around that, probably with council as well, in terms of where that money might come from. It's I think it's a good idea in terms of recognition of people that have a lot for the community, and it may be something that the council wants to recognise and recognise others going forward.
All right, I'll come back to you on that. Sure.
Sorry, can I just add? It would probably come from a grants pool, and it would probably need to be funded from rates, and so we'd put it into under community grants, and we'd put the name of that on as being Les Blackmore in terms of the Les Blackmore scholarship. So that's probably, but that would need to be ratified by council.
Thank you, Angela. Okay. The other matter in the report is the vacancy that Les leaves on the community board, and whether the community board would just like to let that vacancy stand unfilled until the election, or whether you would like to appoint someone between now and the election. And that person, if they are appointed, would only be on the board until the election.
Okay, so I can probably talk to that. As a group, we discussed this, and we did come together with a couple of names that we would just approach informally to see if they would be interested in joining our board. One of those persons has declined the request but gave it some serious consideration, and the other person is still giving it some consideration, so we don't have a definite answer from that person at this time. But moving forward, I'm hoping to hear something back in the not too distant future in regards to that vacancy. But we haven't filled that obviously at this point.
Just quickly, because you're a statute organisation, you can't actually fill them. We either have to go through a proper election, so we call nominations, we make a roll up, we do all that, or so basically, because you are covered by the way that you are elected, it's not a matter of just you being able to appoint someone. The real issue you've got is that would take quite an expense, and basically by the time we went through that process, that person might serve 3 months maybe by the time you got through that process, but it would have to go through an election process.
That's exactly what I was going to say, David, is that it would be a by-election. It would probably cost in the order of about 15 to 20k. It was 15k a couple of years ago, and it would take time, and you'd probably be at the election process. So it probably isn't. It's not going to really work out from a time perspective.
I would disagree with you both on the need for a by-election. If you look at the page 7 of the agenda, the relevant legislation is section 117 of the Local Electoral Act, and it says that the community board can at its next meeting fill the vacancy by appointment without the need for by-election. And I also ran this past our electoral officer, Anthony Morton, and he agreed with that interpretation. So, and interestingly, the Fairlie Community Board has done this 12 years ago. They had someone resign and they filled it by appointment back then. So there isn't a need for a by-election. In this case, you can appoint someone.
I thought it had to go to a by-election. That was just my understanding.
It depends on the time frame. That has to, if it's before, I think 1
Normally
year.
in October, the year before, October,
Yeah.
the year before.
It
Yeah.
would have to be a by-election if it was before October, but because we're now past that date, the legislation says an appointment is allowed.
I didn't think you had the ability to nominate a person. So yeah, I'll have to, I take your point that you've checked it, and it's section 117 of the Local Electoral Act.
Yes.
No, if that's correct, I apologize for that. I realised there was a timing, but I didn't actually think it was. I thought we were still outside it. So yeah.
Sorry. I also thought that I didn't realise it could be filled by appointment. I thought it had to go through a statutory process. So apologies. I haven't checked the legislation, but I'm sure you're right, Arlene.
Yeah, so you've still got to give public notice, don't you, of the vacancy? Yes, public notice of not of the vacancy itself, but that the vacancy has been filled and the criteria that was used to fill it. You can, of course, give public notice and call for nominations or call for interested parties if you like, but that's optional.
And can I ask, do we have to make a decision at this meeting, or can we carry it over until the next meeting until we hear back from this person?
The legislation just says at the next meeting or at a time that suits, so you can carry this over.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Arlene, for pointing that out. That's great.
Yeah, I've certainly learned something. So,
okay. Where to from here, Arlene?
The next item is to confirm the minutes of the last meeting.
Oh, yep. Someone like to move that the minutes of the previous meeting are true and correct? Thanks. Leanne and Singer?
I'll second it. Yeah.
Thanks, Ange. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Just really. Gary. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could I just go back to the last item? I wonder whether you wanted to have a fortnight to think about it. I'm just, I don't think our next community board rounds until April, is it?
No, it's March apparently. I checked my calendar today and it is actually in March. Okay, so I wonder whether you could actually go through the process so that that person was on board for your next meeting if you wish to. So have a think about whether you'd like Arlene to look at calling a special meeting for you to consider that, or something before your next meeting just speeds the process up. I'll leave that for you to think about, Mr. Chairman.
Do we need to think about also the criteria as well? You know, in terms of what you've got on page 8, probably the criteria that you use to choose the appointed member.
Yes.
Okay.
Is the criteria just the same as when you go for nomination to become for the election? So must be nominated for someone within the community board catchment.
I would presume that you'd want someone from the community, understands the communities from the catchment. I guess those are the criteria that you set as the community board.
No, the criteria is that you must be nominated by someone that lives in the catchment board. You don't have to live in the community to actually be on the community board. Yeah.
So, yeah, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I've just sort of joined the discussion. Hi to everyone. I was thinking the way you're putting it out, Arlene, that the community board, if they want someone, will co-opt someone, because I would have thought it has to go to by-election for people to be actually elected.
Yes, Mayor Graham, that would apply if Les had passed before last October, but now that we're into the pre-election period, the legislation does allow for an appointment just to fill the gap.
An appointment co-opted.
The term is appointed by the community board. So co-opt is the same thing, I think.
Yeah. So the community board can suss someone out that they perhaps would like and approach them and then co-opt them.
Yes, that's correct, Mayor Graham.
And that's pretty much the path we've taken at this point in time.
Yep, so just reading the legislation, sorry, I was just Googling. It says that the vacancy be filled by the appointment by the local authority or local board or community board of a person named in the resolution who is qualified to be elected as a member. So it would have to meet those criteria, Leanne, just to answer your question.
They live in the town anyway, so they do qualify.
Yep.
Well, do they? I assume they do. Actually, I don't know where they live.
Yes.
I know he's got a piece of land in the community board catchment. I know that much.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no,
I had to
that's all
go
good.
Google that.
So will you draw something up, Arlene, in regards to that criteria that we can send to people, or where to
Yes,
publish it? We're on the public side.
I will circulate something by email after the meeting.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Arlene. Okay, moving on. Matters arising out of those previous minutes. Do you want to have to go through those matters at present? So on page 12 of the agenda, we'll start with the dump station. Brian, would you like to talk to this?
Mr. Chairman, these matters are further on in the agenda if you would like to just confirm the minutes and move on to until you get to Brian's report, where I think he covers a lot of this.
Okay, yep. Okay, we'll move on then.
Financial report is next. Page 15.
Okay, the financial report. Well, the community board, does everybody have a look over these figures?
Yep.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I had just one question, which I had raised it at the LTP submissions as well. It's showing the new financial year, the township project is 20,000. I think I raised that for some reason it dropped from 40 to 20. I'm not sure what the reason is. I wonder whether, I think David was going to have a look at that. But because I wasn't sure why Fairlie dropped and everyone else went up. Was there a reason that the township project money was halved in Fairlie?
Sorry, Murray, I do remember the conversation. I didn't actually know that. I will investigate it, but I'll certainly go away and have a look, and I'll flick some information to Arlene, and she can distribute it around to see whether I'll have to go and talk to Paul about it in the finance team to see whether there was some background to it. So, yeah.
I think it was largely because, and just looking, I'm presuming, largely because of the large, carry forward. So possibly that was the reason why it never got action, but I speak under correction, Murray.
I think I explained to the previous operations manager about that where there were carry forwards, was that going to be used as an excuse to lower the budget? And the answer to that was no. But that's obviously that has happened here. I mean, there should, when you do the budgets, there should be no consideration of the carry forward, because the carry forward is work that hasn't been done. and probably wasn't able to be done. So it's a double whammy for the community. So I think you need to seriously. I mean, $20,000 is probably, I'd have given it back. It's not it's not worth the paper it's written on. So I'd hate to think that we've reduced the township money because there was a carry forward, and that carry forward is only there because we haven't been able to get the work carried out.
I guess my other question is, just from the community board side, is there any anticipation that you would be spending, what you would be spending this year, whether you would need the 20, otherwise it might be something, if it's not in the budget, we may have to factor that into the new annual plan.
In every penny of it.
Yeah.
Okay, just asking.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I can just say I support Murray on that. Basically, it was never an idea to actually reduce the money for the new financial year because you hadn't spent the money last year. We agreed that any unspent money last year be carried forward and be added to this year's budget. So, yeah, I'm not sure just where that's come from, but thanks, Murray, for picking that up.
We may
I'll
need
have
to
a look at
adjust
it and give you. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, we may need to adjust it. I've got a feeling it didn't happen in the long-term plan, just given what we went through towards the end. And I've got a feeling we may just need to adjust that in the new annual plan. Apologies for that. It might have been an administrative oversight.
I'll investigate it and come back to you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if I could possibly provide some little bit more insight. Brian here. It's mostly to do with me when I was doing the LTP budgets. Shortly after I'd started, still trying to get to understand what the budget requirements were, and really looking at the township budgets and what had been spent in the previous year, which was probably not a lot, resulting in quite a large carry forward. So I wasn't exactly looking at reducing it simply based on because you would get a carry forward. I was really just looking at what had been spent historically, my understanding of what sort of generally might be needed to be spent, and yes, I probably erred on the cautious side of reducing the budget to what had been spent in historically, which was largely how I was having to set a lot of the budgets with my understanding at the time. So probably put it down to a bit of a learning curve at that time.
For you, Mr. Chair, you'll remember that one of the comments on the long-term plan is that there wasn't very much consultation with the actual community boards around projects. So I think, and David's already commented that next time there'll be a lot more consultation in the long-term plan with community boards around the projects. So,
and if I could just apologise, I know there wasn't a lot of consultation, and we rushed towards the end. And if this was if we didn't get it right, we'll need to have a look at it as part of this year's annual plan. So please accept our apologies for that.
And I'll look at it and see what we can come up with a solution. I can't change the LTP. It's been adopted. It's been audited. So it would have to be something, Mr. Chairman, that would move into the next annual plan. But I'll look at the background, give Arlene some information. She can circulate it around after I've talked to other exec, particularly the financial team.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, David. Thanks for that, everyone. Okay, all good. Next part of the financials is the grant allocations. So we have two applications. One is from the Fairlie Bowling Club for the cost towards building consent fees. They have requested $538 to pay for these fees. To the board members, your thoughts, please.
I spoke with Les about this, and he was going to go and talk with Maureen McCall, I think, who is the lady who put the application in and explain to them that that we have a limit of only $250 and that it isn't for retrospective invoicing. Whether that happened or not, I'm not 100% sure. So it's now come to us. So my personal thoughts is that it's not an appropriate grant. It doesn't fit the criteria. It was an unfortunate circumstances that they obviously entered into an agreement without fully understanding the repercussions that when you put in a building consent, you pay regardless whether you could continue with the project or not. And now they've found themselves in a situation where they got an outstanding invoice, which has been outstanding for some time, from what I gather.
Yep, no, that sounds about right. It did get discussed at the previous meeting as well. I think quite simply, if it doesn't fit the criteria, then that's pretty much the end of that one.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
The second one is for the Mackenzie Amateur Swim Club, which have requested $250 towards the repair of the club's dive boards.
Yep. So we're good.
So that obviously fits within the criteria. It doesn't exceed the maximum allowable amount, and we do have $500.01 remaining as a balance. So if everybody's happy to, we could allocate that grant.
Mm-hmm.
Have a bidder.
Yep.
A seconder, moved by Murray, seconded by Leanne, was it?
Yep.
All in favour?
Aye.
Against any? None, carried.
Just for clarification, are you also declining the first grant in that resolution, so I can combine those two resolutions and have them moved and seconded together?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the general update from the Fairlie Community Board. Brian, would you like to speak to this? This looks like your area.
Yes, again, Mr. Chairman. So we'll just work through the report, take it as read, and I'll just deal with item by item largely. McLean Park trees, as you can see, there's a boundary along the southern boundaries. There's some large Douglas firs, suffered quite a bit of damage in the spring, some of the spring windstorms. And one of the neighbours, the adjoining neighbour on the south side is concerned about those trees and coming down on his property, and they do overhang his boundary significantly. I'm largely assuming they were planted as sort of original shelter for the establishment of the trees in the park. I'd largely say that they've served that purpose and sort of approaching the end of their life in a way. There'd be significant cost in doing arboricultural work to them to sort of improve, tidy up the damage and make them reasonably safe and stable, and then they're probably still going to continue to suffer damage. So it's my recommendation that these trees be removed. If we remove them as a large sort of group as they are, we can probably do it as a forestry operation. As Douglas firs, they have some reasonable value, and so we can hopefully do that at a nil cost, other than potentially the cost of dealing with the stumps and then some replanting. And once removed, we can then replant with more appropriate amenity species. So just wanting to kind of to get confirmation and approval for that action, allow me to proceed. Any questions on that or comments?
I think moving forward, that sounds pretty much to be the logical way to handle it, Brian. Certainly don't want to have things ongoing if they don't need to be.
Yep, agreed.
Yep.
So I've got a recommendation in there just to kind of minute that as confirmed. If someone would like to move and second that, if there's no further questions or discussion.
I'll move it.
I'll second it. Yep.
Thanks, Leanne. Thanks, Ange.
Okay. Yep. The next item is is some redevelopment work at the Fairlie Cemetery. We have some budget for some improvement works there, and identified the RS, what we call the RSA circle, I guess, as potentially as a good area that we could improve. So we've just recently removed some unsightly trees and shrubs. One more looking at today, another shrub we might remove, and then working on preparing a new planting plan and plant that area in some attractive sort of flowering shrubs and make it look a lot better than what it was. Went through there today. It's already made a substantial difference just having it all cleaned out. If you're down that way, want to have a look. Just wanted to update you with what we were doing there.
Cool.
The dog park, well, we've been working on a plan, had presented a preliminary kind of plan of the area just to confirm that's exactly what we're talking about. We've put that on hold a little bit. Fiona, our property manager, has expressed some interest in that site, and I believe has had some discussions with you about the proposed site as an option for keeping it for commercial purposes rather than as a dog park. Not sure if Fiona, if you're with us and want to speak to this also, or if anybody's got any other comments. So my history to it is I've really just picked it up from the community board when I commenced about a year ago. We had already identified this site and it was really just been tasked with progressing it. I would say there are, as you're well aware, you've looked at other potential sites, and there's not too many other easy or good sites to go to. And the cost of development is relatively modest. All we're doing is really looking at clearing the site and some fencing and then some furniture and a bit of signage. We've already got our access parking developed, so it's a fairly easy site to develop, and so it could be shifted in the future. There's no imminent commercial development, would be an option if you wanted to still keep that option open, I guess. But the other point is it has been identified as open space in the spatial plan, which will probably carry over into the district plan. So that's something that would need to get changed if you had in mind that a commercial sort of use of that area was better than open space purposes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, is that okay if I add some comments there? So I actually went in. I did view the site, and look, I guess the key thing for property and commercial is we're a relatively young team, and we have got identified a project whereby we want to identify all our assets and the best way of commercializing them. So it's not that's a new project that we want to do this year, and part of the drivers around that is because if we want as a council to be able to provide community facilities, we need to be able to generate the income to do that, and using up potential lands that can be commercialized reduces that ability in the future. Brian and I did have a discussion around other options. Brian, you mentioned the space behind the reserve. Is that all that green space next to the river down behind the reserve?
Yes, the domain area
behind the domain,
significantly. Yeah, but extensively beyond the existing developed area down the river, and that's off the end of kind of around Grey Street. We follow around the back, so that may be an area that would be worth exploring, but I haven't really explored that yet. So, but that offers some potential, I think, given these other limited options on other developed sites in the town.
I did take a look at that site. I'm hoping I was looking at the right piece of land. It had some fencing or yards at the bottom. Is that right? Is that bit?
It could be. It's been sort of farmed for quite some time. It actually adjoins off sort of if you go down Talbot Road. Unfortunately, there's not access from Talbot Road, kind of through the golf course access into it there. Better than round sort of by the existing domain. But that's the area. So we've got there's a potential area down there, but as I say, I haven't looked at it closely yet.
So is that something that, I know the community board have been looking at something for a while, and I don't want to put a spoke in the wheel, but I also am keen to protect what we have until we get a bit of a stock take of what assets we have and how we can best commercialise them. Can I suggest, Brian, that that's something that we look at and come back to you, Mr. Chairperson, to the community board on?
Yep.
For you, one of the things is that, I mean, if there's not a lot of money involved in it, I would contend that to do anything with that commercial land there, it's probably going to take the council 10 years. And that's not being derogatory about council staff or anything. It's just being practical about what happens on councils and their appetite for anything, which is not a hell of a lot at the moment. But so, you know, if we have a dog park for 10 years and it costs us 50 grand or whatever, I think that's a pretty good outcome. You know, I'm not. If we look at some of the other things that have gone on around the district, if we'd have done them 10 years ago and used them for 10 years, we'd all be happy that they probably disappear now, but we've never had them. You know, there's a lot of recreational facilities around that we could have had for, 10 years, but they've been put back because someone thought there might be something that's going to happen with that land. So I don't think we should be afraid to actually, use it even on a temporary basis to give our communities, use of it in the meantime.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, sorry, Angela.
Can I just ask a question? The land we're talking about, is it commercial or is it a reserve?
They have to double check, and Fiona may have looked at this, but I'm pretty sure it's not recreation reserve land. It'll be just council freehold land.
Okay.
It's kind of in our, it's kind of in our plan as industrial, but the issue down there, and can be commercial, is the flood zone that it sits on. And that particular land is in danger of flooding, and I dare say any building there will have to meet the compliance as far as flooding.
Can I just say that it was quite fortuitous that Aaron had included the spatial plan, and it does show it as an open space on the spatial plan. So what's the logistics with that, Aaron? Like, if it's set as an open space, it's open space forever until the next spatial plan review?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's been identified as, I'm just looking at it, open space within the spatial plan. So the intent is to give effect to those spatial plans through the district plan review, which goes through another consultative procedure, which is guided by the Resource Management Act. So any zoning changes trigger community feedback and submissions before they come into effect. Looking at the current district plan, it's zoned rural currently. So the current industrial land is it's further back. So there's the current yards are also yards on this side of Talbot Road are currently zoned rural as well. It neighbours a designation for the old landfill. So the spatial plan has shown it as open space, which was from feedback from the community about enhancing along the Upper River on both sides and providing more recreational opportunities. So that's from memory whitelanded on that. We've shown in the spatial plan the existing yard's been zoned as industrial, but all the other industrial growth was out and surrounded by the open space to provide a nice visual buffer while entering Fairlie from that direction. So I hope that answered the question.
Thank you.
Okay.
So where do we go? What's that?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, the space that we've identified is still my preference. It just makes logistical sense. There's easy parking, it's nice and easy access, and it's very visible. And it also adds to our weighted conversation for NZTA to get a clip on for the bridge, because we're providing more services over the bridge, as we've discussed.
I'm just, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, if I may. Damon. And for those very reasons, it makes it attractive as a potential development. And I'm just wondering, with all the land at the back of the domain, which seems to have a relatively good amount of parking there, if for a dog park it needs to have, if the prerequisites are parking, is visibility, is that high on the criteria for a dog park for the community, or is it just so that people can see that's where the dog park is?
For the community, Fiona, probably not, because the locals will know where it is. It's more the people passing through the town who are looking for an area to let their dogs relieve themselves, or whatever you like to call it. That logistically is why that site appealed to us in the first instance. Just pretty much that, because of the location, I guess. It's pretty much, you can drive by, you can stop, and you can then quite simply carry on if you like.
Yeah, I just wonder if signage would be able to help with that. And just to your point, Councillor Cox, I wonder if you have something in place for 10 years, how easy it actually is in all reality to then change that in a community. Something like a dog park becomes well known, and it is sort of established, even if it is only a 50k spend, whereas the piece behind the domain is, potential to have that for perpetuity.
I think, though, you build a bigger and a better one in 10 years. That's the thing.
Right. What about a reduced period of time? An asset. Just doing a bit of a stock take. I'm keen to do, because I've come along after the spatial plan has been put in place, and there's, I appreciate the importance of community feedback, or the majority of community feedback. However, the spatial plan is an incredible document, and it does need to have effect. I just wonder if there are areas of it that we maybe need to look at through that district plan review a bit more closely, potentially. And I don't believe we should be afraid to do that.
We did, Fiona, when we caught up as a board a couple of weeks ago, discuss the idea of the land as you're heading towards Tegbo out of Fairlie on the right hand side, which is between basically where the township houses end and the reserve ones start, which is Hall Stream. There's an area in there which doesn't seem to be too productive in the way of land, but I'm not sure around the ownership of that, whether that's council owned land or not. That was another area that we have discussed since we had that previous catch up with you in regards to the potential use of that other area where the dog park's been earmarked at present.
Okay. All right. Look, can I propose that I know it would have to be for the next meeting, that perhaps Brian and I schedule some time to go through this a little bit more robustly, feedback to you in between, so that the next meeting we can come to you with a really definitive answer and location for a dog park.
Yeah, I think as a board we'd be happy to do that. Obviously, we don't want it just to sit on the agenda and not gain any traction as such, but yes, we're more than happy to look at other options if you think they're going to be viable.
Just two things I'd add to the equation. We've got quite a lot of freehold land, as Samir said, that is low-lying piece. But there's a lot of freehold land around the back of that industrial site. If we wanted industrial development, commercial development, a dog park capital intensity is actually quite low. So, and you could use it for 3 years and you get your return back on the money, and you would then could relocate it if you wished to. And so basically it wasn't as if you were going to build a building on it or anything like that. So, that's sort of, and again, look, leave all those on the table if you wish for your next meeting. But the dog park doesn't, we're not intending to change it into reserve. It is freehold. I think the council would be best to keep it as freehold. And a dog park doesn't exclude, a dog park's incredibly easy to shift. It's not like a skateboard park or a, like I say, a building or anything like that.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, it's the people that I'm worried about for the shift, not the dogs, or the physical, how their perception of shifting it. But yeah, good point. Thank you, David.
Yeah,
I think Mr. Chairman, I think the key thing would be, if you did want to take that temporary sort of view and determine that the better long-term view was for commercial use, then that's best addressed through your district planning work, and then you can easily zone it for future use as commercial, but in the interim it still allows it to be used for a dog park. So in terms of the existing budget availability, which isn't really specified, it's certainly the really only achievable site in the short term. So if you want to go and start looking at a whole new site, you'll be needing to probably to find some additional budget than what's currently kind of available in the township budget. Is going to be a downside of trying to find a new site, which is going to need excess development and all sorts of development that currently is presently fairly easy at that site we're looking at. So I think that's how to kind of deal with really what do we want to use the land for long term, but still allow us to carry on and do the dog park and achieve and have that in place for the next 5 years without impinging on if commercial was really the most desirable or best use of the land long term. Would be my view on it.
I think we also need to look at the ability to build on the land, given that there's a flood risk there. So, the dog park might be the best option, but I'll leave that for you and Fiona to discuss.
Thanks, Angela. Yeah, it would be quite nice. It's been on the agenda. It's been in discussion as a board for quite a while now. It'd be great to push the go button sooner rather than later. But I think, it's important that we acknowledge everybody's thoughts on that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks Fiona for that. Brian, did you want to talk about the Park Township furniture?
You're muted, Brian.
Sorry, let's repeat all of that again. The next item was really the new toilet projects, which includes a new public toilet in Fairlie, which you may be interested in. So there's an attachment there showing those designs, which the Fairlie toilet design was somewhat a little bit innovative and different, which might draw some comment and different opinions. Yes, so if you've got any feedback on that, but really the contract has been let through the process we went through, sort of design build tender project. We were overall quite pleased with the results we got and the designs that they came up with, which we thought were what we were seeking, something a little bit innovative and different and distinctive particularly for Fairlie and Pukaki sites. So I don't know if you've got any feedback on what we're doing there. Also got a mention in there, so I think it's probably the only item on the agenda about the dump station, which is worthy of some further discussion. Comes up here further on.
Through Mr. Chair, I can't see any pictures of the toilet, so they in your...
Sorry, no, neither can I. I'm just looking for them. The next item on my agenda after the dog park was...
they do seem to have not been attached.
Yes.
Apologies for that.
Yeah.
Don't know if I can pick those up and share them easily or not now. I can obviously circulate that to you directly by email after the meeting.
If you give me a moment, Brian, I can bring them up share them on the screen. But if you want to just carry on with something else, I'll pull that up for you.
Okay. Well, the next included within that TIF projects was the dump station for Fairlie. We had been looking at a location adjacent to the golf club car park, and I got some initial indicative feedback from the golf club that they were reasonably happy with that site with some conditions. So I proceeded to start some community consultation on that site, and I've just today now received a kind of formal notification from the golf club, which has some conditions in there which would make that site quite difficult, I think, to proceed with. Conditions include, one of the key ones that includes the right for golf club to request the removal of the dump station anytime in the future, which obviously with a sort of $50,000 to $70,000 investment, it's not something that's easy to move. So I was hoping that we could sort of negotiate and work on that. I was aware of that condition, but now looking at some of the other conditions as well and some initial community feedback, I'm inclined to, my position at the moment is we should look at some other potential sites again that we bypassed and revisit the options and come back to the community board with some alternative options, which I'm probably thinking at the moment are around the entrance to the domain of the main road. Another site that's just been suggested to me today is on also adjacent to the domain on Grey Street, just the entrance to the park. There's a small lay-by, which we hadn't really identified before. And again, the other possibly best option is on the median in between, kind of outside the fire station, opposite the BP service station. The downside of that site is that there's no sewer there and would require an easement to bring a line through probably the fire station property, which obviously requires their agreement and is therefore rather complicated. But at this stage, I'm inclined to think that the golf club location isn't going to work. Is my position. So I don't know if we have any feedback. So I see on the dump station to start with.
Through Mr. Chair, can I ask when the application through the TIF was put in, where was the proposed location for the dump station?
It wasn't. There was nothing was identified. We simply, community board sort of said we need a dump station, and so we put in a funding application just for a dump station in Fairlie, with the view that we then needed to find a location which has proved more challenging than we expected, largely due to sewer locations through the town that are located sort of behind properties or through properties rather than being sort of along the road. So that limits our options quite a lot to where it can suitably go, together with good vehicle access and a number of other factors that we're looking at.
Just on that, Brian, I've done a little bit of homework just recently on the dump station, and I've made some contact with people in regards to the dump station behind the Gladstone. Now, I realise that the people who run the hotel at the moment closed it off, and I wondered why that was, and I've been informed that it was because the council was sending them a bill for water usage there. So obviously when there was a lot of tourist stuff around and it was getting used quite a lot, they were receiving this bill, and I think from my understanding they were quite happy for the station to be used if there was no charge to them. To me it just seems a bit pointless that there's a dump station there which has not been utilised due to a potential cost passed on to the people who are actually doing the town a favour. Have you got any more information you can shed on that?
Possibly I can, Mr. Chairman. You go, Brian.
Oh no, I was really just going to say, yeah, that's basically my understanding as well. I think we were aware of that situation, but I think our preference was to secure a public site that would be available. Was guaranteed public site, whereas a private site is always subject to the owners turning it down. So I think if we hadn't had the TIF funding, that's something that we could have explored. But now that we've got the TIF funding, I think the objective was to get a public site. If we couldn't secure a public site, then that's probably still a fallback position. That's probably my position, my understanding of it.
Yeah,
David.
In the short term, Mr. Chairman, we could actually see whether we could relocate the water main that just goes purely to the dump station, put our own meter on it, and then just charge ourselves for it, public good. So I could explore that. I didn't actually know that was one of the barriers. I'm not sure, Brian, what would be the issue. Is there anything wrong of having two of them? If they want to run one on their private property, if we paid for the water, plus we have another one?
Not especially. That could still be an option, because I guess, and the other thing, design-wise, I've probably started becoming a bit more understanding of what's required. I probably looked at a double-sided type of facility being most desirable, but probably the demand and Fairlie and level of usage, so that makes it somewhat easier to locate at a couple of other sites rather than something that needs to be double-sided, and in terms of the cost of surrounding sort of car parking and roading infrastructure.
Sorry, Brian, you've turned into Mickey Mouse at the moment, or Donald Duck, sorry, but because of your voice, but that's all right. Joni, could we just put that as an action point for you to check about the feasibility of separating out the water supply for the existing dump station, so at least in the short term it keeps running and we have a happy
Happy to do that.
provider.
Yep, and then also you are aware we do have one at the campground, so that's an existing dump site, I believe, and then we'd be adding 2 more possibly for a total of 3. Maybe we have that volume. It's fine. I'll look into the meter for sure. Yeah.
Joni, was it one at the camping ground existing? Is that like advertised? Because I'm not aware of that myself, actually.
It's there. I don't know if they put it in themselves, and it's our land that they have a long-term lease on, I believe, and it could be that they prefer to just keep it for customers, rather than letting people drive in, dump the waste, and then drive out again. But I don't know the background there. Sorry.
Yeah, that's my understanding. It's really more designed for their campground users, whether they exclude others but don't really advertise it. But again, that was considered as not quite meeting the needs for a public accessible or easily accessible station.
Good point. It's not great site. There's limited ability to turn around and maneuver your vehicles, and if you had a queue developing, it could be a problem there. So yeah, it's there, and let's assume that the best use of it is for campground patrons.
Yeah, I think just with the fact of the lack of tourist numbers at the moment, if we could get the one potentially back up and running at behind the Gladstone, at least that's something that can be used in the meantime until another suitable option's found, perhaps.
Okay, I'm happy to report back to you guys at the next meeting with that.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Brian, so as you can see now up on the screen is the proposed visualization for the toilets, so you can talk to that now if you'd like. Thanks.
Yes, probably not much to add other than I can't remember all the spiel that the architect gave us quite about their choice of why they chose that. Sort of rock faced, and which they felt was sort of tying in with a river stone and effect. Quite like the idea of them sort of 2 units facing each other. The internal units are sort of the standard Exelou units, which most of you be familiar with of using these at Tekapo and other sites around New Zealand. So yes.
Is it using the
same?
same?
Don't know if you remember.
Is it the same footprint more or less as the existing toilet block, or is it significantly bigger? I'm just curious.
Would be quite a bit bigger, their overall footprint, certainly of the two toilets. And that's why we had trouble trying to locate them and thinking that they wouldn't really fit on the existing site terribly well. And plus there were sort of parking issues down in that corner as well. It wasn't ideal. So hence the relocation to the new site and this design.
So, Brian, are these going to be mixed sex, or are they male and female?
At the moment, they can be either. Generally, my recommendation is a unisex approach because it allows much more efficient use of the facilities. And that's probably the standard approach now for most public toilets, is to go to a unisex approach. And I think that's probably the new ones at Tekapo in particular are all unisex. It's probably more the traditional ones have that separate use approach.
For you, Mr. Chair, the location of these, is this a new location? Is this the location?
Yes, it's pushed along. If you can see on the plan there, in front of the hotel, just adjacent to where that wide parking bay is, which we sort of ran through with the community board at a previous meeting.
Is it opposite the Gladstone?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Right.
It's really, you can see the council building there. I'm not sure how I point on this, but it's the third one down is the actual council building. So it's just slightly in front of the building that builds the boats or does the boat repairs, which is our neighbour of councils. So it's going to be directly located across from them.
But that's right. That's at the other end that we talked about, isn't it? Didn't we talk about it being down the other end of the car park, past the memorial there? I mean, because is it where where that location is now? Is that where the electric cars are?
Correct. It will be just slightly down from there, and that's something we've got to look at. What's the ideal parking? Problem is, if you move it too far down, you move it too far from your playground and your children and your mothers and things like that. So it's actually a dual purpose, not only for travellers, because we're intending to shut the other one. So, basically it's you can see the footpath there.
We're going to put the buses, because you're going to have, you've got electric car parks and everything.
And we are looking at the whole parking plan. It's an action that you've got on for me to do. I'm gathering just all the reports, the previous reports together. I'm sorry, I haven't got that, just to see and then get you a holistic. One of the things, and Fiona may talk to it, but I believe Meridian or Genesis, one of them is talking about additional parks. We want to make sure that those additional charging parks fit into an overall plan of parking for the whole of the community, including buses, including disabled, and I think we need disabled parking close to the toilets, obviously. So yeah, there's a number of issues that need to be addressed when we come back to you with a parking plan.
That's great with a parking plan, but that's you're dictating that by where the toilets are. So shouldn't that whole parking plan and the toilet location be done as one subject? Because
I would say to you,
you've got no options for parking. You're going to have to put it around there. I just think
I think you've got to put the toilets in reasonably proximity to your playground, though. Otherwise, you're moving them further from your shopping centre. You could put them down the other end. It wouldn't be my recommendation. That was all.
But that hasn't been put to the community board. This is the fait accompli.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. What would you like us to do?
Through Mr. Chairman, I believe we, prior to this, we did discuss moving from the existing site to this site before we proceeded to go to tender, because I knew this would be warrant some discussion.
Meeting I wasn't at.
Through Mr. Chair, the consensus was that it was to be at the southern end of the green, the village green. That's where the community board said we didn't want it in the middle, because we were given the three options and we did choose the latter down the end. The other concern I have is a locale to the soldier statue. That is a very revered statue within the community, and I'm not sure how well that would be received having toilets so close to it, and also the carriage. It may be insignificant to some, but you know, people within the community have worked very hard to get those things, and they are revered, and I'm not sure having toilets so close to them would be so well received. I would just ask that it be reconsidered.
Yeah, well, as far as I can see, yeah, this wasn't the location that we had agreed to as a board or recommended. But clearly they need to be located somewhere. I've actually spoken to Alpine Energy in regards to the charging stations, and they're quite prepared to come up and have a meeting on site to see what the options are in regards to relocating them, because obviously these toilets will need power and the likes. So there's obviously a fair bit more to be ironed out on this before it can proceed too much further, I would think.
So, Mr. Chairman, you'd like us to put the contract on hold. What would you like? The location plan, I think you're very, well, put it this way, I'd be very concerned about moving them further away from your playground. I would say they're one of your biggest users. I'm not quite sure what report was considered. I'd have to go back and look at them. The parking, like I say, is subject to a whole parking plan. This will need certain parking outside it. Of course it will. There is parking there at the moment. It's just a matter of how you relocate it. How would you like to proceed with it?
At this stage, yeah, as I say, we did run through the location. There were 3 location plans. This was the preferred option. The other one was sort of halfway between the existing toilet and this location, and roughly where the carriage is, which would have probably involved the relocation of the carriage.
Through you, Mr. Chair, how quickly can we
revisit that?
What was that, sorry, Murray?
I just think, how quickly can we get staff to actually produce the location and the parking plan and all of, you know, the whole concept? How quickly can that be put together? And I mean, even if it has to be a round table with the community board members on their whole plan.
We're not going to get the parking plan done in a quick, I think you're better to do it right than to do it in a hurry. So look, like I say, I'm still in the information gathering. You've had a number of reports on Grey Street. You've had a number of reports done by Apley and things, and I'm pulling that together. So it's not a matter, you know, yeah. Put it this way, there's a lot of other things on people's plates at this point in time that it wasn't a high priority list. And we didn't see it being vital for the location of the toilets, because the location of the toilets the toilets need to be located by other parameters, because parking can easily be changed, because that is the item that has got some flexibility.
So I might just add too, Mr. Chairman, there is a time frame in which we need to spend this money. So if it goes on for too long, we may not be able to have this funding.
Yep, okay, understand that.
I think there's no particular issue we've got with the existing Alpine charging unit. Probably we had some concerns because there was some discussion about Meridian wanting locations to put more charging stations in, so that site was identified. So we just wouldn't want more charging stations there. So part of the attraction to this site was that the existing parking bays, and but with the car chargers obviously tie up a bay for quite some time, so we wouldn't want too many there anymore there. But the current situation is fine for the toilet. It does, as you point out, semi-preclude the site for bus parking, but that's really where David's saying, well, we need to look at the whole town and the parking options. But really, we're just taking advantage of what was there to a large extent.
Okay, I mean, that was probably one of the biggest hurdles, if you like, for relocating the toilets to where we originally discussed was to get the buses out of the centre of the town and away from the playgrounds, which is why we basically recommended we'd like to see them located towards the more southern end. I think as far as the concept of the toilets themselves are involved, I think they'll be quite fine and suitable. It's just the location, I think, is more the issue. What does my other board members think on that?
And through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, I think that sorry, my dog's barking at something. I think when we did look at those three, and Brian, if you're saying that this is the furthest location that was presented, I think we envisioned that it was more opposite the Gladstone versus the council / Josh's garage. Is there any concession that we could just shunt them down a little bit, not all the way down to, you know, the little circle and stuff we're indicating the trees, but just moving them down south some?
That would put them straight on top of your war memorial, because at the moment they're located halfway between the path, just looking at the picture, halfway between the path and the war memorial.
Oh, okay. So is the war memorial on the location? It's not on the location map, is it?
No,
No,
but it'd
not
be
really.
opposite the start of it is opposite the Gladstone, basically. Sorry, I can't show you here. I'm pointing on my screen, but only I can see that.
Maybe if you could, is that part of
Leonie,
your
you
report?
suggesting
Yeah, where that thing
down,
is.
down.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think what the main concern was is if the toilets are located right next to that memorial. So you're saying that there will be spacing around that, David, is that correct? So they're not...
Correct. They're not on top. They're about halfway, like I say, between the existing path, because the existing top curve park is there. The little bit to the toilet's not there. That would be a link that we would have to add in. But basically, it's located principally halfway between the path and the war memorial. I think you've got to remove, there's a little picnic shed there, or a little that
Yes.
we'll have to remove to get it out. I'm not sure what it is. It's kind of like a little seat, I think.
Yeah, so we're sunshade with a picnic table underneath it.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. That probably clears that up a little bit, isn't
Yeah,
the location as such. Yeah.
As long as the war memorial has a clear boundary around it and the toilets are not really encroaching on it, would have been my main concern. I might go for a walk down there tomorrow and just have a wee visual, just so I can clear it in my mind.
We'll certainly make sure that we keep well clear of the a war memorial. You can see it's also designed to face inwards, away from, well, I suppose away from the war memorial. There is places, however, to sit there, as you can see in that picture. So if you do have to wait for a toilet, there is the ability, and you need shelter, either shade or shelter.
Okay, so the angle we're looking at on the screen, David, is that the side facing the road, facing?
That's from the road. My understanding, is that right, Brian?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. No, that's cool.
So just one other thing, Mr. Chairman, I have to ask Brian or Angela, David, are we obliged to consult on a building such as this? Public building?
No, there's no obligation to consult. You could consult. The issue, I think it's within the LTP, and even though it's not our money, it is our money now that they've given it to us, but it's not coming out of rates. So no, there's no real need to consult. Again, it's nice to consult. There's no doubt about that. And there's a whole pile of different degrees of consulting. I suppose what when we went out with the bid is we wanted something that had a little bit more flair than just a concrete block building. And we believe, we've got 3 different architectural styles that the architects believe will blend, will fit into the community, but be enough of a feature to not look ugly, not attract, vandalism, graffiti, etc.
Yep, you're right, David. There's no requirement to consult through a special consultative procedure. It's really more engagement with the community and the community board.
Thanks for that.
Let's talk about locations. So we didn't have the designs at that stage. This was before we went to tender. So we did put an item on let's talk about the proposals, and we had very little feedback, or what it was from memory was positive. But yeah, we didn't get into obviously trying to consult, because you've got the problem now. We've gone to tender, we've got a contract. So trying to consult now, yeah, sort of too late if you like. We could potentially tweak the location to some extent. That wouldn't affect things too much, but that's probably our only real scope we've got at the moment.
I can appreciate the time constraints you have, but from a board point of view, as a community board, it's all about engagement with the community as far as we're concerned. So if these projects are happening and we're not consulting, or at least putting it out there for the public to view and have an opinion on, I think that's probably more from the board's point of view, which is then in turn governed from you guys. So yeah, like I say, I understand the time constraints, but it would have been nice if we could probably have a bit more time just to put it out to the community.
You're on mute, David.
Sorry, I did. I just muted myself, didn't I? It's one of the difficulties when you go for a design and build contract. A design and build contract does help you control prices and costs. And we did go out in this contract for a target price. We told them how much we had and how to get it, but it does actually pull that. But obviously, when you get a design and build contract, the ability between the design and the build to consult and change obviously has or potentially has quite a significant could have a significant price variation on it. Yeah,
and we understand that. Yep.
The bottom line is, I think, Damon and Community Board, I think this is it's good for Fairlie. It's going to be good for Fairlie. Those toilets are problematic, how they are and how we dealt with them. They're majorly due for an overhaul, and to get the opportunity to get this funding, I think is very, very good for Fairlie. And I think well done to David and his team for pushing ahead and getting concept plans out.
Yep, for sure.
Sorry, through Mr. Chair. Just, are these going to be the same toilets that are at Lake Pukeki and Lake Ruataniwha as well? Like, is that what they're getting as well?
No, quite different designs. This is designed this is the Pukeki design. So it's again designed quite different, designed to blend in with what there is currently, particularly sort of the roof design and style, and we're retaining the existing toilets there as well and just adding to those to increase our overall capacity. And then the Ruataniwha toilets are a lot simpler. Well, they actually came up with quite an innovative design, which we quite like, which I think Twizel Community Board had some mixed feelings about the design and colours, but sort of a lot better than just a simple sort of square toilet block. These could have ended up being, as where only the specification was for single toilet cubicles. We've actually got 2 at each site, so we're quite pleased with the outcome of these as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Our specification covered the number that we wanted and the quality we wanted, so it was designed that could be easily cleaned, kept clean, a lot of contactless sort of water taps and things, so you're not picking up germs on your fingers and things like that. So the serviceability is very similar inside, just the architectural style outside is different.
Through Mr. Chair, yeah, I like the design for the ones in Fairlie, and if the stonework is quite almost matching the townhouses that are down the road, it would fit in really nicely. And obviously we have the stonework on the council building, so it would blend quite nicely. I'm happy with the location if that is what has been consulted out in the initial consultation. And that was, I know that you said you didn't get much feedback, but what you did was positive. We know that there's not usually much uptake, unfortunately, in consultation. It's usually after the fact that we hear about it. So if my personal feel is, if you feel that you've done enough consultation, particularly on the location, I'm happy with it. And I do understand the reasoning and the logic for putting it where it is. We'll just cop it in the air if someone doesn't like it.
Oh, we've got some answers now, so we can yeah, give some feedback when needed, if needed.
Yeah.
So no, thanks, David. And thanks, Brian.
I move on, Mr. Chairman. Right, the next item was just a piece we've got the facility strategies progressing. We had the feedback come in. We didn't get a huge amount of feedback again, which typically most councils don't on strategies. They're a little bit high level. But most of the feedback was reasonably positive. We were just going through it yesterday, and I've got there'll be a summary report going to the next services committee. So if you wanted to have a look at that week. Generally pretty positive stuff on the whole, though, with a few just relatively minor things. The next item was some park township furniture. So you'll see later on the agenda, there's some few options. So we've identified some of the common furniture, park furniture suppliers around the country. I'd have to say it's not all the options. So if you don't like these options, we can revisit it. Interesting that the Tekapo Community Board, they didn't like any of them and wanted a chunkier sort of timber style, which we've found an alternative for them. But the Twizel Community Board chose, I think, the wooden slatted seats and an interesting option for the bike stands. So just to open that up for discussion, or it's a bit hard, designed by committees, always interesting. I would comment, there's a couple of options there. Some of those seats probably do come with options for armrests. Armrests are typically good for elderly people or others with any disabilities to help them get up and down into the seats. So my typical preference is to have these benches with armrests rather than just without. So their favourite sort of look.
Through Mr. Chair, we had briefly discussed this, and I think we quite like number 3, didn't we? The seating and the bench. And also, I hear what you're saying about the armchairs, age friendly and all that sort of thing, hot topic at the minute. But I think having a back rather than having a park bench with no back, at least they can sort of push, an elderly person can push themselves up a little bit easier if they've got something to brace themselves against, versus if we don't have any armrests, which that one doesn't, unfortunately. But
it's optional.
Yeah.
Oh, arms optional. Yeah, well done. And yeah, so I think that was our preference, number 3, Brian.
Great, nice, simple slatted one. Yeah, which is
That's
quite
us.
a common choice. Yeah. And that's probably sort of flows on into the park benches. They're suitable in some locations, but mostly we're using the full sort of back on it rather than these benches. The picnics tables, most of those options are now sort of accessible. So we're going away from old style, which tend to have bars across them, which are quite a little bit inaccessible. So all these that have got the seats sort of being semi-freestanding. So I guess option 3 would mirror the chair design. It's got the bar through the middle, which I'm not sure I probably favour. I probably like the freestanding sort of seats. There's on number 2 and number 4, or number 5, similar.
Through Mr. Cheeky, did we pick a table?
No, I don't think so.
No. Sorry.
But I think, in keeping with the style, if you could implement the slating or the timber, if you like, off number 3 into something like number 4, I think it'll be quite suitable.
Yeah, that looks sort of smart and modern, that style of seal, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit more creative than the more industrial style in 2 and the simpler style of 3. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Table 4 then it is.
Yeah.
And then finally the bike stands. So got a range from the sort of more innovative one in number 1 to the simple sort of hoop stands in 2 and 3. Tekapo chosen these number 3 with the Ups to Ocean sort of cutout, which is similar to what's was done in Twizel some time ago. They've obviously got the Alps to Ocean there, so not quite so appropriate, but we could just go for that simple hoop style, or have your own motive in the middle there. They can do whatever. They've got some particular. You can have the MDC logo there for simplicity and style. So that's one way you could go, or some other cutout, or you get into these continuous ones here. It's interesting. Twizel like this one with the solid concrete blocks in the end, which was a little bit of a surprise. And as we mentioned, Tekapo's going for this style here, number 3.
What does the members of the board think?
I probably like number 3.
Simple but effective.
Yeah.
Did we through you, Mr. Chair, did we want to explore the option of having the one that we had discussed where you hook your seat over it?
Or like a tie-up rail?
Yeah, it was, sorry, just the, the plank of wood basically, and then is it your handlebars or your seat or something that you hook over it?
The seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hitch the sort of hitching rail style. The slight downside with those is for electric bikes to lift up onto them would be my only reservation about that style. They're quite common in sort of bike parks, but they're mostly where traditionally just standard mountain bikes. So more typical for the sort of urban environment is some sort of stand or the hoops.
Okay. Do we want to give it some more thought as a board, or are we happy to make a decision now?
There's something wrong with number 3.
3 looks good.
Yeah.
Everybody happy?
Have you got a thought about sort of a motive in for that panel? Could it's anything other than the MDC? As I say, we could look at how the MDC logo could be done into that. Even if it was, I know the sort of the cheapest option and what they went for Tekapo is the stainless steel. We can finish them in a powder coated colour. It does cost a bit more though, or just a sort of a matte black plain steel.
All right. Do we need a motive?
I think even about the bike motor, because so that it
Yeah, I agree. I think to actually define what they are, because when those Alps to Ocean ones went up in Twizel, a lot of people didn't actually know what they were, that they were actually bike stands. They didn't understand. They thought they were just advertising for that. So
So having the bike motives, I guess the reason why they've done that, so people clearly know that they're for bikes. Yeah, good point.
Yeah,
so could just run with that. Yeah,
which is what's displayed there in the picture.
Yeah.
Everybody
okay,
happy?
great.
Yep.
Thanks for that.
Thanks, Brian.
That probably takes us back to being able to get on with the bike rack, which we talked about a location. Is this on this agenda? I get confused because we had on the previous agenda, I think, didn't I? We talked about, I think we finalised that location down opposite the supermarket at the end of kind of the median area. There was a paved area that must have been on the last agenda. We agreed to that. I just had to confirm what sort of design we wanted. Recall that from you, Leanne, you're probably the most familiar with this. Must have had that on the last agenda.
Sorry, is that Brian? You were gobbledygook.
No, sorry. We confirmed the location opposite the supermarket at the previous meeting, didn't we, on that median area?
Yeah, I thought, yeah, Damo and you are okay with that flat area. It's
Yep.
minimal prep. Just whack them in
It
there.
makes sense, so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that brings me to the end of my lot. Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Chairman.
David, would you like to speak on the engineering manager's update, please? You're on mute.
I'm going to introduce Joni on that, who is our new engineering manager. So Joni will do her report, and just before she does, she can introduce herself and tell us, and you'll find out where she's come from as soon as she speaks, but that's all right. I just want to apologise because we were going to have Phil Hogan come and talk to you, but you have got a big agenda, and so we will get Phil Hogan to come and speak at either your next meeting, which I didn't think it was till in April, or we might try and bring them along. They've got our new roadie maintenance contract, and so they've talked to all the other community boards, and they were going to come to your last meeting, but because it got cancelled, we didn't. And you've got 2 lots of business on this agenda, so we didn't want to make it too long. But Joni, I'll pass over to you.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, the Fulton Hogan contract promises to be kind of a quantum step in difference, I think, from the past maintenance contract we've had. So it'd be good for you to hear what they're about and what they can offer to Mackenzie. This is a new idea that you hear a little bit about the world of engineering, which is basically 3 waters and roading. So this report really doesn't mention roading. It's not that we're not doing anything, but I apologize, just getting my feet wet here, and I just had 3 waters items on the list. So water supply, just wanted to let you know we are meeting all of our water quality standards. Water restrictions are now in place. Water needs to be conserved. We have some plans underway to upgrade the Fairlie water treatment plant. That's very important that we do that to ensure a reliable, safe supply for Fairlie. The design work is underway, and I think we're doing design. But no, sorry. There's apologize. I think we're getting ready to let the construction contract on that once we finalize a few of the important parts of the design. My understanding is that at least the one part of the treatment, the membrane filters has an unusually long lead time, and so we would want to get it going early, so we're not held up by that. And then finally, we are doing some water main replacement throughout Fairlie, and that's ready to start shortly. Wastewater, we had our inspection from ECAN to assure that we're meeting our resource consent for that, and there were just a few minor things to address there, so that was all good. We've started now our desludging operation in Fairlie. This is something that you do with oxidation ponds typically every 10-15 years, and we're doing it in all 3 towns. It has been postponed by the district. In fact, it's never been done. So one of these deferred maintenance things that has now become a pretty big, project in its own right. So what we hope to achieve by this is when you remove the sludge that's meant to settle to the bottom of the oxidation pond, you get more capacity for wastewater in the pond itself with that sludge layer gone, and you get better treatment rates. You get better aerobic digestion of the waste. So we're hoping to see improved quality of our effluent and additional storage space in there as well. Stormwater collection, that's our 3rd water, stormwater, and we're putting together a stormwater management plan as for ECAN as part of our resource consent. We have a consultant working on that for us, and that's due, I think, in March. So shortly, should be due shortly. So a little bit boring for you guys today, nothing really exciting to discuss, but that's the engineering report.
Just at the front end of that, Mr. Chairman, it's first you've ever had one of these. I think we would welcome feedback. What would you like to see, or do you want to see it at all? But we do believe you do spend quite a lot of money in your Three Waters and Roading area. And maybe we thought it was useful that you knew about projects that were coming and going. Just a quick update on that water main replacement. It has been let. So Rooney's picked up that contract, and they're starting, and the contract is imminent. So that'll be good.
David, can I just ask a question? And Joni, the wastewater, the third bullet point is 2024 correct, or does that need to be amended?
No, that's how long it takes.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry, Dave. Could you help me out with that one?
Sorry,
Upgrading
which
the water
bullet point are you
treatment
looking
plant.
Plans on the
Oh,
way
yeah.
for the water treatment plant. I thought that was sooner than 2024, but I'm just double
No,
checking.
it's not, because basically we believe it could be somewhere between 9 and 18 months to get the membranes delivered from overseas. We
Okay.
haven't let it to, we've got a meeting tomorrow talking about the procurement procedure, but we're going through the design of the performance that we want from the plant. But, and that may be even worse with COVID. That's why we're trying to accelerate everything. So yes, unfortunately, it's got a 3-year lead time probably.
No, thanks for the clarification.
Yep. Thanks, Joni, for that update. That's yeah, it is appreciated to be kept informed.
Happy to help.
Okay, we'll move on to the local alcohol policy. Mark, I believe this is your area.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So I'll just give you a little bit of just a background. In 2016, Timaru, Mackenzie and Waimea District Councils adopted a joint local alcohol policy, and how that operates in the admin side of alcohol related side is that Timaru District Council is contracted by both Mackenzie and Waimea to provide services around your manager's certificates, your special licenses, your licenses for your hotels, your supermarkets and everything on those lines. So those who went before us decided it was a good idea to have a joint policy for the three councils to work together. The other advantage of having a joint policy is that you don't get any conflicting rules. For instance, closing times. The closing times for the supermarket to be able to sell alcohol will be the same through Timaru, Waimea and Mackenzie. So you haven't got a supermarket open until 11 o'clock at night selling alcohol in one part of the area, in one part of South Canterbury, which means you've got other people travelling there to buy alcohol. So it's a lot around consistency. The aim for it is to really promote healthy drinking and keeping everyone healthy. And where we're going with it is that the full council will have nominated 2 members to go on this committee to review the local alcohol policy to ensure it's still fit for standard. They're not actually the members that sit on the full committee. Mayor Graham is one that sits on the full committee, but they felt it was a conflict of interest to have the committee members review the policy that they then enforce. So they had to have 2 other council members, which I think this is the 3rd time Mayor Graham's heard me speak about it, so he's probably bored. But I think it's they've been nominated and they've accepted their nomination. Is that right, Mayor Graham?
I think so, Councillor Cox and Councillor Murphy.
Congratulations, Councillor Cox.
Did I agree to that, Graham? I can't remember that.
So basically what they're looking for is initial feedback from stakeholders. So they've sent it out to licensed premises and that, but they're also really interested to hear what the community has to say. And so the information will then go into the committee where Councillor Cox and Councillor Murphy will be looking at it from a Mackenzie point of view and also as a South Canterbury point of view, if I can put it that way. And then out of that, they'll decide what the policy is going to look at. In general, all the councils are in favour of continuing, but I'll let Mayor Graham talk to that. So really what we're after is just some initial feedback from the communities as to how they can see this policy working moving forward. Would you like to add anything more, Mayor Graham, seeing you sit on the major committee?
Thank you, Mark. Yes, this is the third time this week and you're doing very, very well. I think we've got actually quite a good policy the way that it works. A joint lap between the three neighbouring councils seems to work quite well. Initially, when we went out and put some rules around it about 20 days for an application, I was 20 or 14, one or the other, I just forget. We did meet a lot of resistance, but it's about us having time to make the decision whether it's responsible the way the alcohol is being handled. Do they have the right provisions in place? Can they manage it? And so it requires a police report, kind of a report also from the health department, and one or two other things. Again, this comes into siting of alcohol premises where they should be. So there's quite a lot in it, and I think what we've got is very good. And I think we've come quite a long way in the education of alcohol and managing alcohol in our communities. There has been, since I've been on it, a couple of hearings for Mackenzie. Both of them have been to do with Fairlie hotels. But I think we're in a lot better place now, and it's working very well. And the people that are managing it are being really responsible. So I don't see that we need to be making too much change, but it is up. And so if you've got any concerns, fire them into Councillor Cox, and he can take that on to the Commission. Thanks.
Is there anything that you want to add, Councillor Cox, considering you've been appointed?
I didn't quite hear that, Mark.
Is there anything that you'd like to add, saying you're going to be the very sensitive at this
I
stage?
think you and Graham have said pretty good. Yep, no, cool.
Well, that's probably all I've got to say, Mr. Chairman. It's just really an opportunity for some initial consultation, initial thoughts moving forward for the document to be formulated and adopted at a later stage. The one thing I will say is that the initial meeting, the first meeting, which was scheduled for February the 8th for the review committee, that's been postponed because of COVID. And at the moment, I'm not aware of a new date. I don't know if Angela has been told of a new date, but I'm only aware that it's been cancelled for the 8th.
No, they've only told me that it's been cancelled and they haven't scheduled a new date yet.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, that's probably, unless someone's got some questions for me, that's probably my lot. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. If, I don't have any questions for you. I think yourself and Graham, does any of the other board members have anything they want to add? All good? Thanks, Mark. Okay, moving on to spatial plans. This will be you, I guess, Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was just a short agenda item to present to the community boards the spatial planning document that was adopted by council in October last year. The spatial plannings it turned out to be an 18-month project for council staff and elected members and the project team, and involved a number of engagements with different communities throughout the district. And this is just an opportunity to present the final document to the community board, which creates a blueprint for how our townships, including Fairlie, will grow. And at the next stage is the district plan review, which we're looking to commence in the coming months to start hopefully giving effect to some of these spatial plans, which involve additional community consultation and a bit more detail than the high level spatial plans. So happy to take any questions from that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Anybody got anything they'd like to add?
Just through you, Mr. Chair, if there's sort of no questions on the spatial plan itself, it's probably just a little bit about what happens now and how that fits into the district plan. What's the update on that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So the district plan review, we're currently working through a work program for the next probably 3 years about how we do the district plan. It's an incredibly large project. So we're looking at creating different work streams within chunks that can be achieved without the whole project losing momentum. So we've got a project team that's working on that at the moment, and we'll be releasing some engagement on the approach to be taken early March, hopefully. So we're finalising that work program hopefully by the end of this month through workshops with council, and then I can come back and present to the community boards what the program is moving forward. Then it's about getting into detail around what some of these zonings and pretty colours on the maps looks like in practice. So that's more about minimum allotment sizes, finalising those boundary setbacks, any design guidelines. As it's a statutory process, we have to consult with the community and we'll receive feedback. So we'll obviously do pre-engagement to get a steer from the community, but with any process, we're not going to please everybody. So they have the opportunity, once we notify new provisions in the district plan, to make submissions, and that goes through a formal hearings process before final decisions are made, and then that's also open to appeal. So it's a lengthy process, a massive process for the council that is being approached in a manner that will hopefully succeed. Well, we will succeed, so that it's good value for our community.
That's great. Thanks for that update, Aaron. Alrighty. Last item on the agenda. General business. And an update from you, Murray, as the councillor, please.
Well, yeah, I probably haven't got too much to update, seeing we've just come out of Christmas and things. And obviously we've got through the long-term plan, and now they're into the annual plan. I mean, one of the good things about tonight is that thanks very much for all the staff that are on board, and the updates from them. So that's sort of, I think they've given pretty good update as to what's happening probably around council, and what's coming up. So I haven't got a lot to probably add to that. I think at the other community boards, Graham gave a pretty good update on COVID, where that's at. So Graham might want to just talk to that again, seeing he did a good job, and just whether Angela's got anything that she wants to bring up. But I'm pretty happy with things, and it's great to see so many staff on the Zoom meeting.
Thanks, Murray. I'll let Angela talk to our COVID rules that we've put in place to strengthen our council as such. Bear in mind that we've got essential workers, we've got services to maintain, and we're worried about the outbreak of Omicron as it comes south. So Angela, do you just want to, probably it's better coming from you than me.
Yep, no problem. Sorry, I just had to step out to the toilet. So excuse me stepping in and out. So yeah, we're really worried about, the emergence of Omicron. I think it is a bit of a game changer in the sense that it's not, if we're going to get it, it's a case of when it's going to transmit through, and transmit through the South Island. They say that the factor of how many people it infects is a factor of 3. So you'll start with a case today. Tomorrow it'll be 3 cases. The third day it'll be 9 cases. Then it'll go to 27. So you can see how it grows quite exponentially. We're a small council. At the moment, our head count's about 38 people. And we need to make sure that we can continue to provide the essential services. So we need to make sure that we can still have customer services. We need to make sure that we can continue to provide water, wastewater, solid waste, and do the roading repairs. So, and should circumstances dictate and we have a widespread, local outbreak, that we can stand up a basic EOC to be able to assist with any welfare services that might be provided through MSD or through with the South Canterbury DHB. So essentially what we've done is we've put in a vaccination policy. That vaccination policy means that all council workers have to have been vaccinated. We've got quite strict rules around mask wearing. You'll see only when I'm sitting in my office with my door closed, I have no mask on, but the moment I go out into the building, we have masks. So staff that are sitting in open plan are wearing masks. We're also, we've divided our staff into 2 teams. So we've got team 1 and team 2, and potentially we might even have a team 3 for people that can work remotely with no impact. But what we're trying to do is to make sure that we can continue to provide services. They estimate about 25% of the workforce can get sick and be absent at any one point in time. So, you know, really essential that we make sure that we've got some rotation to be able to provide those basic services to our community. We're continuing to monitor the situation. So as and when things change, because it's a continually evolving situation, we're making sure that we adapt our approach to whatever's evolving. We've put, you know, in public facilities, we had put already in vaccine passes and vaccine mandates to be able to use certain public facilities, and we're continuing to maintain that approach going forward, just given the emergence of Omicron. We're also working with the schools locally to make sure that we understand what the requirements are in terms of, you know, being able to access pools and swimming pools. The advice is not quite clear yet. We're still waiting to get firm confirmation of that. So that's in a nutshell what we've done. It's really all aimed at making sure that we keep the resiliency of the staff. Our council meetings, as is this community board meeting, we're trying to do it via Zoom, just to make sure that we once again preserve our bubbles as well. So that's about it in a nutshell from me. And it will continue to monitor and watch the situation.
Great, thanks Angela for that update.
I might just add one other thing. So just to give you an update.
There, Murray.
Damon, can I just add 2 things? So just to say that we've got some key projects we're working on. Our annual plan, so we're in the process of just looking at our annual plan, and we'll probably be going out to do, depending on what the changes are, we may or may not do a full consultation process, but certainly there'll be some engagement and some information around the annual plan going out, probably around March or April, probably around April. The other key project that we're making really good progress on is Te Manahuna Kiuta. And I might ask Graham if he wants to give a bit of an update. We had a really good session the other day and it was quite inspirational.
Yes, thanks, Angela. Yes, I had been a wee bit concerned about our destination plan as such, which is Te Manahuna Kiuta, but yesterday and the last 2 days, along with our fellow partners, the Ranangas and Doc and Linz and Wakatakahi and MB, we have developed and revised our principles and vision, which we had a wee bit of trouble around. I think we've kind of now got to a stage there where we can go forward. We're at the stage of making Mackenzie something pretty, I was using the word inspirational, but now I'm changing it to aspirational, which is going to be something better than anywhere else in New Zealand. But it's also got a strong focus on protecting and managing the environment, the people, development. It's got a commercial focus. And yesterday, for the first time, I felt quite pleased that we've got in a stage where I can see that come in another couple of 3 months, we'll actually have a plan that hopefully will be a blueprint for the next 50 to 100 years as people live, enjoy, develop sustainably and regeneratively and aspirationally, all here in New Zealand and Mackenzie. So I think it's very exciting.
Yep, and just to say, I was chatting with Christchurch NZ earlier today, and they were talking around tourism, and we're a little bit ahead of the game in that we're already journeying down this path of actually doing the resets and the pivots and deciding where we want to go in the future. A lot of councils are still in the process of doing that. So it was good to see that we're on the forefront for a change, and we're actually doing some really good work in this process. And I think there'll be some really exciting projects that fall out of this at the end of it.
Thanks for all those updates. Made my job easy. Thanks. Back to you, Damo.
Got off lightly there, Murray. No, thank you for those updates. Yep, it's always good to hear that feedback. So also there we've got just a few other notes. Some of this stuff has been covered off already, so we won't dig on it too deep. But under general business, we've discussed the Dial Park, the dump station, the new toilet block and EV car charger situation. The bike stands and the outdoor seating, we've covered that. There's a couple of other things. There's the memorial wall project, which is for down at the cemetery. We have received an email on that. Yeah, do you want to speak on that, or do you want me to run through it? Or?
And I'm happy to speak on it, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
So Francie Edge, bless her heart, has contacted me to be the conduit between the committee into the community board with Les's passing. She did ask me to be on the committee, but I felt that it was too much of a conflict. I said I'm more than happy to be the feeder for community board updates. So she sent away a report today. So she's managed to get a wee committee together of herself, Kevin O'Neill, Gary Harris and Anne Thompson. There was some talk about, I'll just let the council do it from now on. And she was like, no, this has got to be community driven with support from council and community board. And I said that is exactly what needs to happen. So she's quite happy to keep forging ahead with our support. So she's brought those other three people on. Kevin's heavily involved with the golf club, Gary's involved with the Masonics, and Anne is with the Heartland. So she's got a great wee team around her that I have every faith that they will achieve, particularly with Anne Thompson involved. They will achieve what they set out to achieve. So they've already done a preliminary sketchings, which are up in Heartlands if you want to see them. I have advised them that with the height of the memorial wall that they will have to apply for a resource consent, and it will need structural engineering involved. So they're quite happy with that. I just didn't want them to think, I wanted to make them quite aware of all the steps and processes that they would have to go through, and also resource consent. But the first thing that they actually need to do is write a letter and submit it to council to actually ask permission whether they can actually go ahead with the project. So Arlene, I think you can hopefully expect something relatively soon for the next council meeting for that to be discussed at. So there was on the rest of the report, they've split it into three sections. The first section is the costs of the wall. So L&L have done a written estimate of approximately $23,500 plus GST, I think, I'm not 100% sure, for the construction of the wall. They're getting a quote for 35 granite plaques. So the plaques will be pre-purchased, and I'm assuming you then purchase that plaque and then take it away and get it engraved. So it's all uniform. It won't be higgledy-piggledy. It'll all be the same. And then the cost, they want to do a bronze map, which is quite ambitious of them, to have their, I'm not sure what it will actually look like, but that's minor details. They've received $5,000 from the Saturday markets that are held by Heartland. So that's their first official donation that's come to them. I know that the golf club were going to commit some funds from the golf tournament that's been held this weekend, but because it hasn't got council permission, they've decided just to hold off on that. Is that right, Damo?
Yes, yep. So that tournament's actually Sunday, the 13th of February.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was this weekend. Yeah, so but I think perhaps the golf club will be up for additional tournaments that they hold to committing funds towards the memorial wall once they've got permission from council that the project can actually go ahead. And they're going to come to the council and ask for some money. So that'll be for you guys to have a chat about. And yeah, so basically they're just wanting that I have reassured Francie that the community board are 100% behind the memorial wall, that we had that discussion, and when Les was still with us, and there was no doubt that that support was going to continue with him not being here. It just depends on what that support looks like and if we're willing to give financial assistance towards the build.
Thanks, Leanne, for that. Yes, 100%. The community board will certainly be behind this project. Obviously, Les had done quite a bit of work in the lead up to this to get it to this point, and yeah, we have talked about it as a board of perhaps getting his name onto that wall in some aspect as well, seeing as he was a bit of a driving force getting it off the ground in conjunction with Francie. So we look forward to this project progressing, and hopefully we can get it across the line and underway and completed in the not too distant future. Would be great.
So just one thing on that. Sorry, Damon, if I can just say, Kevin and Neil dropped a set of plans off for me, so I've been quite privileged to actually see the concept as such. Is there still going to have to be some decision where it goes in the cemetery? There's a number of sites, is there, or
no, they've pinpointed on the western side, so you get the outlook, and there must be a reasonably decent area that's free. I would have thought that the plans that he showed you would have had a location map with them, Graham.
No, I didn't. I sort of wondered where it was to be.
Yeah, so I think it's on the western side, so on the faraway border, and it's on the high side, so the northwestern corner-ish. It's been identified as there. But if you go into Heartlands, there is actually a location map in there showing you where their proposed.
Okay, thanks. No, I think it's a great concept.
Yeah, and they've done some community engagement. They've had the plans up in the Heartlands. And, you know, Francie has already had people coming to her saying that they'll be buying plaques, you know, particularly for people who have spread ashes in other places, but they want to have something permanent here in Fairlie for people to come and visit. So there has been good engagement and uptake of that as well.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to be rude, but I've got a family commitment, so I am going to have to leave the meeting if that's all right. Apologies. I'm sure the rest that are remaining will have all the answers.
Thank you for your time, David. Cheers.
Thank you.
We haven't got Les here to keep us on track.
A lot to discuss this time. We haven't had a meeting for a while.
Yeah.
I guess we should probably just add in on that. I forgot to mention it before, is the Lions are willing to back this project quite a lot as well. So yeah, they'll have involvement in that in certain aspects, no doubt. Thanks, Leanne. The last thing on that, under general business, is the domain toilets. When we met previously a couple of weeks ago, we discussed the user options on this, the facilities conditions, and whether or not it's been actually utilised to its abilities, I guess. Can you add to that there, Brian, by any chance? Is Brian still with us? Yep.
Yep. Sorry, I didn't quite catch the subject. It was breaking up a bit.
The domain toilets, which are associated with the camping ground down in Fairlie. Just the use around them.
Yes, I'm haven't actually been too involved in conversations with that. I think Fiona's been investigating, so I'm not sure she's still with us or not. So I can't add much more to that. I'm sorry.
That's cool.
It's Fiona. Yeah, I think Fiona might know more.
Sorry, could you just repeat the question, please?
Just in regards to the toilets in the domain, which the camping ground people use them.
Oh yes, yes.
We just discussed it as a board in a pre-meeting catch-up. What's the condition of them, and are they being fully utilised, like from domain users' point of view, or I understand that the campground probably look after them and clean them.
Yeah, and we're actually going through a renewal with the campground at the moment, and so that was one of the items that came up in the pre-renewal discussions when I met with the lessees, that that they are getting used quite significantly by users of the domain, and often because it's an ablution block which includes showers, they're using all of the services rather than just the lavatories, and the role of cleaning does come down to the lessees, which they did mention can at times be onerous because they're not always left in a great state. So further a step on from that, when I went back on the commercials for the lease negotiation, I said, would you like to, on the back of this conversation that we had with the community board, would you consider maybe an extension of those of a toilet block that perhaps then would service the people in the domain, but obviously utilising the services that are there? And they came back and said no. That was just all via email. So that was interesting. And I don't know if they said no to a couple of things. I'm not sure if it's just a commercial negotiation tactic. And now that I've had some legal advice on another matter, I am able to go back now and explore that a little bit more. Yeah, but it was interesting that they said no to that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's interesting. I would have thought that anything to enhance the facilities to maximise the use and lessen their commitment, I guess, would be beneficial to them. But anyway, that's between them and the council, I suppose.
Yeah, and it may change. It may change as the discussions evolve. I've only just heard back. I only had a meeting with the solicitor yesterday, so now that I can address some other points, I'll wrap it all up and revert on that if it changes.
No, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you think a contribution
Right,
to
the
cleaning cost would help? Sorry, just further, just a question. Do you think a contribution to the cleaning cost or a contribution from council towards cleaning would help alleviate the situation?
Yeah, that didn't. I don't think that, or, you know, potentially you could say that they may use that in terms of the lease negotiation, in terms of the commercial rent that because there is an increase that we're looking at for them.
Right.
It wasn't the fact that there was a cost to them. It was the fact that the state of it was the state that they were sometimes left in wasn't great, and I thought that was a great solution that we would look at perhaps. Yeah, so I'll explore that further, and that's definitely something to have up my sleeve. Brian, agree. Would that come out of a reserves budget?
You come and talk to me some more about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but public toilet budget. Yeah, because it's seen as a public toilet, but yeah, it's a point that there's expectation that they provide or make access to that toilet, but there's no contribution to the cost of running it, and it'd obviously be cheaper for us to keep that access rather than try and build a new toilet and then service that toilet would be a whole new cost. So we want to try and keep that use going as long as we can.
Yeah, and that wasn't they can't. It's part of their lease anyway. That the access is there, that they have to support that.
Thanks for that, Fiona. Yeah, just as a board, we were just being there at the community users domain and are entitled to use those facilities. We were just wondering how that was tracking and what the status quo was there. So no, thanks for that. No doubt we'll hear some more feedback on that in due time.
I've got one other item I can update to Chairman. The Fairlie Community Centre kitchenette upgrade. Our builder's finally got a cabinet maker that's interested in doing the job. Come back with an updated quote. So we're looking at a total cost of about $15,000. Just quickly scanning the documents. We only just got it the other day. So I'll now hopefully be able to get on with that. We've got a reasonable budget set aside there for renewal works and capital improvements, so that's sort of no problem. And don't have any other plans for that money other than possibly a furniture replacement of chairs and things we're looking at as well in the community centre, because they're quite dated and had one accident with them. So yeah, that's a little bit of progress there. We'll be hoping to make in the next month or two.
Great, thanks, Brian. Does anybody else have anything they want to add in general business? I don't think I've missed anything in my report. All good. Righty-ho. And the last part is the community board action list. Well, we've pretty much just discussed them. Brian's just given an update on the communities. The dog park's been discussed. Fairlie page. Nothing's changed on that, has it, Leanne?
Sorry, what was that, Damo?
The Fairlie peace trees, the Arafenua Marae have received funding to start a tree nursery. We haven't heard any more on that, have we?
Yeah, because I haven't contacted them.
That's okay. That's all good. The Fairlie River Trail. Do you want to comment on that, Brian?
That's back in council hand, isn't it?
Action on the river trail. I'm just trying to think what the action was intended to be.
Through Mr. Chair, I think it was whether we were going to contribute any funding to maybe park benches or something.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Building bridges and the like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit. I guess we possibly stalled on this to look at the trail strategy, what came out of that, but just then to provide ongoing support. It's really how we just need to progress how we can best work with the Lions to assist them. I know Tim had some concerns about what was going on there, but we haven't. It's sort of settled down to some extent now, unless we want to get into it again. But the Lions like doing what they're doing, and we were trying to, I guess, help in some way. And perhaps do some improvements, but I think it's sort of going to come out of really the overall implementing some trail strategy actions and prioritising. Is that a priority to put money into and see what we can do there? So it's a little bit of a resource issue at the moment.
Yeah, I might just add, Mr. Chairman, Venture Timaru are pretty keen with their cycle trail that they've developed from Washdyke to Pleasant Point. They're very keen to develop it further and to connect in with the Opaheat Trail and take that trail through from Fairlie, Kimble to Burke's Pass. So there's quite a bit of work going on from that side of it. And I think Murray Bell and Co are involved in also that. I think they're going to come and present to council. So there's interest around encouraging that cycle trail.
It would be amazing to get that coming through the district.
Yep, no, for sure. Oh, well, we sort of know where we're at on that one then. That's great. The bike stand's been covered. The dump station's been covered. The parking strategy. Obviously, David's working on that. So he'll have something for us, hopefully before the next meeting to have a look at and consider. Other than that, if there's nothing else, then I'd like to thank you for your attendance and your patience on what's been a long meeting, but it's been a while since we've had one. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you.